mind, spirit, or mechanics, the quantum leap from void to being. Chapter 11. Conclusion: Ancient Maps and Modern Convergence. Law of Attraction as Electrical and Behavioral Dynamics. We have traveled a great distance in this dissertation, from the Vedic hymns of the 2nd millennium BCE to 21st century fMRI studies, from the oracle chambers of Delphi to computational models of cortical circuits, from the alchemist's workshop to the psychedelic therapy room. At every stage, the same pattern has appeared: ancient traditions describing from the inside what modern science describes from the outside, phenomenological maps overlapping with mechanistic models, the language of spirit and the language of electricity illuminating the same underlying reality. It is time to gather the threads and state, as plainly and precisely as possible, what has been learned. The central finding of this dissertation is that human experience, from the most ordinary habits to the most extraordinary mystical states, arises from the interaction of a small set of fundamental processes. Each of these processes can be described both phenomenologically, how it feels from the inside, and mechanistically, how it works in the brain and body. The first process is constrained potential. At every moment, the brain exists in a state of latent possibility, a dynamical landscape filled with multiple attractor basins, each representing a possible perception, thought, emotion, or action. This constrained potential is what the quantum wave function describes at the subatomic level, what dynamical systems theory calls the metastable regime, and what ancient traditions describe as the field of karma, the Tao, the divine ground, or the plenum of being. It is the void of the title, not empty nothingness, but a fullness of possibility. The second process is state resolution. This is the transition from potential to actuality, from superposition to a definite state, from indecision to decision, the quantum jump. In the brain, this transition is driven by nonlinear competition between neural populations, threshold crossing events, and noise, the random fluctuations in synapses, neuromodulators, and sensory input that make outcomes unpredictable even when probabilities are known. In human experience, this is the moment of decision, insight, conversion, or creative breakthrough, the moment when something new comes into being and the future pivots. In ancient traditions, this is kairos, divine intervention, enlightenment, or the karmic turning point. The third process is embodied regulation. This is the ongoing maintenance and modulation of the body's physiological state through the autonomic nervous system, endocrine system, immune system, and bioelectric dynamics. It is the substrate of will, emotion, habit, identity, and consciousness. Ancient traditions called this pra, chi, or pneuma, the vital energy flowing through the body. Modern science describes it as the electrical and biochemical activity of the nervous system, action potentials, neurotransmitter gradients, oscillations, and electromagnetic fields. The fourth process is interoceptive mapping. This is the brain's continuous monitoring and interpretation of the body's internal state, producing the felt sense of being alive, embodied, emotional, and situated. This is what the chakra system maps with remarkable accuracy, the spatial distribution of internal sensation along the body's axis, reflecting the anatomy of the autonomic nervous system. Ancient practitioners, through extraordinary interoceptive training, mapped this internal geography centuries before scientific instruments existed. Their maps are not anatomically literal, but they are experientially precise. The fifth process is identity-level attractor maintenance. This is the persistence of a characteristic pattern of self-organization, the pattern of decisions, preferences, habits, values, and self-regulation that makes each person a unique center of agency. This is what traditions call the soul. Modern neuroscience describes it as the integrated activity of the default mode network, hippocampal memory systems, prefrontal executive circuits, insular interoception, and basal ganglia habits. It is not a substance but a pattern, a resilient, complex, beautiful pattern that constitutes the most intimate reality of a human life. Across all these processes, the ancient systems got one thing profoundly right: the primacy of experience. They began with the raw data of consciousness, sensation, emotion, intention, perception, the felt texture of being alive, and built outward. They understood that the body is not a vessel for the mind, but the medium through which mind exists. They recognized that transformation requires practice, sustained, disciplined repetition of new patterns. They grasped that genuine change is discontinuous, a threshold crossing, a quantum leap. And they honored the mystery of consciousness, the undeniable fact that subjective experience is the foundation of everything else. What modern science adds is mechanism, the how that complements the ancient what. The brain is a nonlinear dynamical system in a metastable regime. Decisions emerge from competitive accumulation in cortical circuits. Time perception is constructed by predictive processing. Will is an electromagnetic reorganization. Habit is the deepening of attractor basins through Hebbian learning. Interoception is mediated by the insula and autonomic pathways. The self is a persistent pattern maintained by the default mode network. Mystical experience arises from disrupting that network. The law of attraction operates through attentional bias, behavioral priming, autonomic signaling, and self-fulfilling action. None of this diminishes ancient insights. It grounds them and makes them available for integration into a unified understanding of human nature. The implications of this convergence are profound. For psychology, it suggests that therapy must address not only beliefs and behaviors but the deep attractor states, the identity-level patterns, that generate them. For spirituality, it suggests that contemplative practice is not escapism but direct engagement with the brain's fundamental processes. For philosophy of mind, it suggests that the mind-body problem is not a puzzle to solve but a duality to transcend, mind and body as two aspects of one process. The quantum leap from void to being is not a metaphor imposed on reality. It is a structural description of how reality works, at every scale, from electrons to human lives. It is the pattern by which potential becomes actual, possibility becomes commitment, the unformed becomes formed, nothing becomes something. It is the deepest pattern in nature and the deepest pattern in the human soul. Ancient traditions named it karma, dharma, Tao, pneuma, or the will of God. Modern science names it bifurcation, phase transition, attractor collapse, or state resolution. All point to the same truth. From the void of potential, being leaps into existence, in every atom, every neuron, every decision, every life.